Hey, sorry about the delay. I oversecured myself. So a lot of what Inquisitive IT, what we do for clients or individual investors, retirees, is we lock down Google Chrome, and I'm using StreamYard here to stream this podcast here. So not only did I lock that down, I locked down the sharing capability back out. So that's, like I said, sorry for the delay, but security is frictionless. And I think I just, once again, learned that everyday lesson that, you got to be careful in terms of locking things down too much. So anyway, I have a quick presentation. Wanted to go through the five most common attacks, some of their causes, walk through a little bit of how they happen, and we'll get you out of here pretty quickly. So I'm just going to share. Just give me 1 second here. But reach out with any questions you have. I also do some VCSO work with family offices. Happy to discuss some of the recommendations I make. I'm not into typically long engagements with VCSO work, whether it be compliance, risk assessments, but I am happy to help out. And ultimately, at the end of the day, my goal is to support individuals and help those individuals, secure themselves and remain safe online without fearing losing their money, hacks, social engineering, and some of the things we'll go through here. So bear with me here. If you have any comments, please feel to drop them in here. But, we're going to talk about, how the anatomy of those attacks and going through some of those things. So I am trying to add some slides here. And once again, I'm over securing myself. So it's failing here as well, but I have some older slides. So why don't we just jump through those? The last presentation. There we go. So this is from May. We're now in June, but I, in the problem here of over securing myself, I failed to upload some new slides. So we'll talk about some kind of horror shows. Like, again, a lot of this is repeat from last time. I can skip through and really talk about, the anatomy of the attack, how they happen, some of the solutions we deploy, everything from authentication to managed laptops to some of the policies that we help our customers navigate and remain safe. So let's just start with this slide. So almost all attacks, from ransomware to identity theft to phishing, most of them have a lot of the same causes. Some of the causes might be, they call it credential stuffing, which would be just using emails or passwords from another site where they stole, and they know that you are not, you've got bad password hygiene. You're not out there switching your passwords. You're not out there using a password manager that creates unique passwords. No MFA. This is a recurring theme. Snowflake was down, or many Snowflake customers, which is a cloud data storage provider, allowed their customers not to use MFA, or didn't force MFA on them, so they were attacked. United Healthcare, I don't know, what is it? Half of Americans are, their data was leaked because MFA wasn't turned on. Vulnerabilities, configs, and malware. This is a little techie, and it talks about how your laptop is set up. You can't simply buy something from the Mac store or buy a PC from Best Buy, take it out of the box, turn it on. It's, out of the box, it's probably 20% configured for security. So you need someone, typically outsourced IT, like MSPs or MSSPs. An MSP is a managed service provider, really just an outsourced security provider for small businesses. But in the absence of having a company and a corporation taking care of these things, that making sure your laptops or personal devices are safe, um, it creates a lot of opportunities for adversaries or attackers to get in and get into things. But we'll go through that. Vulnerabilities really, I think, tied strongly to ransomware. Hearing a lot about in the news about ransomware, but ransomware, a lot of it is rooted in either configurations or vulnerabilities or malware. Installing scripts, but all, like I said, as a result of buying things out of the box, they're not secure as they would be if you're working on your, corporate laptop. Social engineering, recurring theme, never going to go away. These adversaries are smart to, use yourself, use the human weakness against you to get in. We'll go through some of those attacks as well, but that is a common weakness or source of attacks. Email compromise, getting into your email, lurking in there, dwelling that you might not even notice they have access to your email, has ramifications as well. We'll talk about that. DDoS, which is distributed denial of service, means a man-in-the-middle attack. Typically, it's from using Wi-Fi, but that term can be used in social engineering and phishing as well. A bit confusing. Ransomware is really not so much the cause, but the actual threat, occurring. So we'll go through some of that. So weak passwords that are reused. Can't stress enough on using a password manager. We'll talk a little bit about pass keys and UB keys and how they can be used in conjunction with a password manager to stop this bad behavior. You'll see Fluffy123, maybe using your birthday as a PIN or some number in your family that's potentially exposed for attackers to find out, like your birthday or street you grew up on, or addresses, anything where your last four of your social security number, right? Like these things get stolen or they're leaked on the internet, and they have ramifications, and they can be used for attackers or tried at certain attacks here. Like I said, common passwords, reused, different derivations of them, make it really easy for attackers to get in. So it's important to use a password manager, because password managers create unique, complex, long passwords that if they get breached one place, they don't get breached somewhere else. So we'll talk about that as well. No multi-factor authentication or weak multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is simply the second step. You need two things to log in, and MFA, like text-based MFA, 6-digit MFA, is definitely weaker than some other forms of authentication, which we'll talk about here in a second as well. Inquisitive uses binding phishing resistant MFA. I'll keep talking about this silver bullet called passkeys and UB keys, FIDO2 encryption. We'll get into that in a little bit here. And we'll come back to this, but why don't we just talk about it now? So cat's out of the bag on this magic, super strong phishing resistant MFA. Passwords and UB keys. Unlike when you need to get a 6-digit code on your phone that you use to log into a website, this idea of your phone number being your identity in the United States is troublesome, because those codes can be stolen. One way is if an attacker phishing attacks you, you think you're on a legitimate website, you go in, you log in, then you enter the code, which you're sending the code directly to an attacker. They can get in, even remotely on the other side of the planet in Russia or wherever they're coming from. So that's a problem. This idea of a passkey is binding your identity to the device such as your phone, such as a key, one of these YubiKeys keys we're showing here. So even if they phish you and you give up the login and then you give up the MFA, it doesn't log them in because they're not in the presence of that private key. So that's very important. We'll keep talking about how this disrupts attacks. Many of these, 5-7 most common attacks can be intercepted or disrupted by the presence of using these FIDO2 pass keys, either your phone. Your phone can also act like one of these keys because it's in the presence of you as well. So that's a really important, because those, they can either SIM swap you, which we'll get into as well, which will allow them to get that 6-digit weaker MFA. But this idea of in the presence of you having strong authentication is really important. We do this for all of our individual and investor clients. Weak MFA, I talked about that. Phishing, we just talked about that exact attack and how that happens. The other one is called prompt bombing. You may have the authentication where they can send you a prompt, and on the app, you just have to say yes. Once again, this is a weaker form of authentication because it's not FIDO2 encryption. You could log in with a phishing site. They could send you a prompt. The prompt will, let them in, or, allow that cookie theft to be used remotely. So that's a problem as well. The other thing is they call it prompt bombing. Someone's already stolen your credentials. They have your password. They have your username. They'll just keep hitting, do you want to give this permission? Do you want to give this permission? Until eventually you say yes, because it goes away. Bad idea. They're in. So I don't know who originally falls for this MFA fatigue attack, they call it. But that's, once again, why weak MFA is a problem, and you need to use passkeys and YubiKeys when you can. Not all banks, many banks don't actually do it yet, which is kind of shocking. But it's important because it protects your email, which is the source of many of these attacks. Weak MFA, once again, SIM swap. Imagine an attacker collecting enough information online about you from the dark web or public, simply Googling you. They could call your cell phone provider and get your cell phone, moved to them. And all of a sudden your cell phone doesn't work, and that form of identity has been stolen and it's been removed remotely. I've seen examples of this. You can Google, these attackers, they're so good at it. They'll call up Verizon, they'll have a fake baby yelling in the background and be like, oh, my husband, he lost his phone in a cab last night. Can you switch the phone? What's this piece of information? What's the PIN? Once again, using your, some common credential, they can get the phone stolen away. With the presence of that phone and that weak MFA, you can steal money, you can move money, you can do a lot of things. So talk about ransomware in a bit. So ransomware is typically the result of either a phishing attack, like a link click, but also a vulnerability on the machine. Doesn't necessarily need to use a vulnerability. By clicking a link to a fake website on a phone, in your email, there could be vulnerabilities on your machine. Chances are every machine has tens of thousands of them, believe it or not. Some are more dangerous than others. And by clicking the link, it executes that vulnerability and takes over the machine, encrypts the files, keeps the key, sends you a ransom note in some form of communication, either text or email, and your files are locked. The machine may be locked. So that's one way. The other way is they can send you a script, a nefarious malware script that could execute off the internet in your browser. Same thing, ransomware has locked down the machine and you're in trouble. So how do you prevent this? One thing is don't click on links, just having good hygiene. This is what people talk about cyber awareness training. I think that's a little a little naive because some of these attacks are very complicated. Some of the links look extremely real, and that may be a problem. Um, the other is vulnerability management. How do you stop these scripts from executing? So our clients have laptops that are managed, and there's two things that stop ransomware or prevent it. One is the OS is extremely simple. There's very few applications on the machine. Um, so even with clicking a link, it would not execute that for two reasons. Like I said, there's not a lot of vulnerabilities on the machine. A, B, the browser is also managed, so you can't pull malware from the internet and go get it. So we're trying to shut down that side, the left side of the equation there. Uh, the link clicking, like I said, there's a very specific email that's put on the machine so that a lot of the spam mail doesn't come through. We're using technology and email filtering like DMARC so that those malicious links do not come through. But the other is, like I said, the execution. Even if they do come through and they're clicked, the left side of the equation is clean, and we're preventing that ransomware. The other thing is a lot of individuals don't really have a lot of things that you'd want to ransomware. Your photos may be backed up. If they're able to encrypt those files, you're probably going to want to pay that ransomware. But we'll dive into a little bit about why that laptop and putting your financial activities on there is smart and separating it from your personal life. So, invoice fraud. I said having control of your email is important. It's also important that your vendors have control of their business email. This is a little bit of a horror story of a newly married couple loses $800,000 paying the wrong vendors. Also could be used this term like a man in the middle attack. But the email was compromised by the vendor, and they look like a real vendor and they look like real invoices, but the bank accounts on those invoices were going to an attacker, the same attacker who sent those invoices to the couple. So this actually is the biggest source of cyber insurance losses because the numbers are staggering. Like in this case, 800,000, 200,000, 50,000. There's a case in Singapore where there was a $25 million wire fraud. They had a fake Zoom call. They had AI impersonated faces and voices on the Zoom call. The junior analyst thought he was being instructed by his CEO to send the money. So this is a little bit more of the people and policy perspective of sending money. You have to have a system to send money, figuring out what are the alternate forms of verification that the actual wire and ACH, you're actually sending money to the right people. This is, like I said, the biggest source of cyber insurance losses. I'm sure it's multi-trillion-dollar source of problems, right? Like people sending wires in the wrong places. Very difficult to get this money back. And, so you really need a process to go through and double verify. I have total anxiety when it's time to wire money to anyone that's new, that's not in my Rolodex, in my banking payment system. I'll call them up. I'll call up someone else in the company, and have them, forward me to them. Right? You just got to be really creative, think outside the box of stopping ACH and wire fraud. And never rush. Always take your time. Attackers will always want you to rush because they know you make mistakes. So those are some of like the breakdowns of some of these attacks. I'll talk a little bit more about the technology, just trying to switch things up from last time. Last time we talked about some of the stories, identity theft, United. But really, what's the goal of protecting individuals? Three things Inquisitive IT focuses on. Like I said, manage laptops and desktops. We just talked about ransomware attacks. The other is authentication is really important from a technology perspective. Using passkeys and YubiKeys, incredibly important to us intercepting and disrupting attacks. And the third is just ongoing cyber awareness training, which is difficult. It's probably the hardest one to train. I have friends and family of my mother using one of these laptops, but it's difficult. It's difficult to teach new policies and changing routine. It's just personal habit, and it's tough to do. So people, process, and technologies. This is a little different, but tech, procedures, awareness, best practices, and support are some of the things we provide. So the number one thing from a policy or procedure perspective is separating wealth from personal. So we send these secure devices to individuals to use. On these devices, we ask that they only access banks and investing. Maybe they have tax correspondence on there. The only websites that work from a allow listing perspective is banks and the websites, banks and investing websites. So an attacker can send a script, but it won't execute on those browsers. There's very little on them. They're very stripped down. You're using passkeys are the only ways to actually get on them and turn them on. So like I said, very, very locked down, very kind of simple. And we're compartmentalizing the aspect of their life in terms of investing in finance. We're using a password manager just on that one section that's accessible with a passkey. Complex and unique passwords are enforced. The emails are not used outside of this. You're not signing up for retail stores using this email. Like I said, compartmentalizing and just bringing this aspect of life onto this one secure computer is really what we're trying to do here from a procedure perspective. So they have, and in terms of financial accounts and everyday, where does that kind of, where's your personal life start to cross over into your financial life? When you want to spend money, you need access to money in terms of, to pay for things online, to credit cards and regular kind of like online checking, right? So what you'll do is you'll have either multiple bank accounts or your investment account pushing money down to your everyday use. You should never be able to pull money from where you have your crown jewels, your retirement assets in there. So having that this kind of one-way door where money is pushed down so you have enough money to live your life is one of the other things that we greatly recommend to help minimize losses, even if from a personal account you're defrauded. Some of the technology, like I said, we most of the time we're using Chromebooks, but if you want to use MacBooks or PCs, they're not as safe as Chromebooks because they have a lot more applications and code on them. You have to do a lot of things to secure them. We understand that some people want to have one computer. It's less safe. We are able to create a managed browser on those machines, but there still could be key logging, the ability to execute ransomware on there. So not ideal, but we do, just like many managed service providers, outsourced IT providers, we are able to manage laptop, PC laptops, MacBooks, desktops as well, but Chromebooks are ideal. And that, like I said, involves a lot of, depending on how far you want to go, we can scan for vulnerabilities. We can scan for configurations to make sure they're safe. We can use detection, EDR, endpoint detection, and response for those things. How much monitoring, how much money do you want to spend to invest in this, to clean up basically vulnerabilities and configuration problems. Phishing resistant authentication is the backbone of our security strategy. Like I said, this having these passkeys or YubiKeys in your presence changes the game in terms of going away from your phone number being your main form of identity and authentication. They cryptically bind yourself on the spot, or remote attackers, which consist of, I don't know, 90% or more of attacks, are taken out of the game. So some of these other things I mentioned, vulnerability scans, endpoint detection. These are really for Mac and PCs. Managed browser, which is part of a Chromebook, basically built in. But if you're not on a Chromebook, you can use that as well. Dedicated backups. Business data. We're not dealing with business data because we're dealing with individuals here, but that's important. Configuration management. Like when I'm talking about configuration, think about the ability for the computer to turn off after a certain amount of time. Does the USB drive work? All different kinds of configurations that are you can harden the machine basically from attacks and data leakage. Regular updates. I think I talked about that. It has to do with vulnerability management. And new solutions. Attackers are evolving. We're constantly trying to up our game to make sure that we make things as simple and as safe for individuals. Password managers, I mentioned this before. Complex passwords and unique passwords are important. This coupled with YubiKeys and passkeys is a game changer. You should be using them personally because it makes your life easier and more secure. But we're also using them. We're using a different password manager on the Chromebook. I posted this a couple months back, really talking about mapping kind of all the things that passkeys and this idea of having FIDO2 authentication could disrupt attacks. But yeah, these are all things that can make a difference. And as I said, stop, I think, 90% most of attacks. Hopefully my internet's not too bad here. Like I said, from a policy perspective, no shortcut, never click on links. We're trying to teach our clients how to do this, but it's still always hard. There are very tricky, deceiving messages. Even security practitioners fall for them. I think it's a mistake to think that you can rely on cyber awareness training to protect against these things. Other things, messages telling you I need money quickly. Urgency is always a red flag. There's fraud on Facebook. There's fraud on Zelle. People asking for ACH details. They might sound like they're in town or nearby, or like I want to reserve something so it doesn't get sold. The money's gone probably. Talked about invoice manipulation a little bit. Business email compromise. Like I said, don't click on links. Always navigate directly to the website. We like to say, please always start there and log in with your passkey. You'll probably disrupt an attack if it's a phishing link. ACH wire fraud, be creative. Not only just calling and verifying a phone number. Do 3 times, 4 times. Think about all the different ways you can make sure you're sending this ACH or wire to the right place. It's terrifying. We're buying probably a new house soon, and I am, to send some of that money, I'm going to be incredibly careful. They actually have a warning in the contract, watch out for ACH and wire fraud. So this is becoming more prevalent that people are aware of the risks. Credit card and bank notifications, you can get text messages or messages on your phone anytime the money is being spent. Set it at 0. It doesn't even need to be $100. It just becomes personal habit. You kind of see where money is being spent. It's not, you you can even get them in app outside of your text messages. So it's not even that annoying to see when these payments are coming through. If you're using Apple Pay, which is also a good idea, it'll show up as a background, movement of money, so you're aware kind of everywhere you go. You get in the habit of seeing the money kind of pop on your phone every time it's spent. Multi-party approval coming to Google Workspace. We will be using that for if a user loses their credentials. We will probably have multi-party. It's kind of like nuclear football, like 2 keys that have to be turned at the same time. This can greatly increases safety. Password managers, we talked about that. Do not store the creds for business Google. I'm not sure what I meant by that, but we can come back to that. Wi-Fi best practices, and I know we're over a little bit on time here, but if you're traveling, use a hotspot. VPNs are a little controversial because they also can take your data, or your data can go through them. For our high net worth clients, hotspot's always best, but a lot of times you're in a foreign country and your cell phone doesn't work because the carrier didn't switch over to roaming. Use a VPN to access local internet. Be careful, don't be doing anything in investing here. At home, set up guest networks for everything that aren't your cell phone, your laptop. Probably everything should be on a guest network, including guests. And you just want to be really cognizant of that. Even kids' friends should be using the guest network. Keep that internal network sacred. Ring doorbell cameras, TVs, Roombas, all go on the guest network. Other best practices, which I just did recently on Google, create a legacy plan so that if you God forbid pass away, the beneficiary will be contacted and they'll have access. You won't have to go through a power of attorney or anything like that to get access to your data. Dark web scans, be careful what's out there. I run them. There was a slide here we didn't cover, but one of the healthcare or protein providers that I use online was breached, and they still haven't even made an announcement about it. So it's important that you know kind of what's out there. There are services for high net worth clients that'll clean this up. And I think it's important that you do that because it makes you less vulnerable. Less information out there is better. Use passkeys. Wife's Amazon account's been hacked 4 times. We just use passkeys. I have a passkey. She has a passkey. Things are going pretty good now. So use it on social media. I'm using it on StreamYard, this platform that I'm streaming to LinkedIn. WhatsApp, passkeys.directory tells you all the companies that are supporting passkeys. That list is going to grow dramatically in the next year just because this is such an effective tool to prevent remote attacks. AI applications like ChatGPT and Gemini own your data forever. Some of that personal data, I have no idea where it's going to end up, but it can be used by attackers. So understand the terms and conditions. Don't input sensitive data, especially identification data. Here's those dark web resorts of Piping Rock. So this is my dark web resort report recently. Luckily, there's no social security numbers, but you can see my email here. I'm sure they probably have some old weak passwords. Password managers as well will tell you when you've probably had a password compromised. So key takeaways: don't click on links, don't pass go, use your passkey, go right to the website. Use passkeys, create another email account, specifically financial and investing. Be downright anxious on ACH and wire payments. It's the biggest loser of cyber fraud. Have a strict process. Be creative. Think about all the different ways I could contact them. Have fun with this. Make a game out of it. Call the colleague next to them and have them pass them the phone. Go down there. If it's a local place, figure out hey, is this the right ACH I mean, I cannot overstress this because it's crazy how much money is being lost to attackers and how creative they are to make sure you have the wrong credentials to send them money. Dark web scans, like the one I just showed you, you should have one of those services running just to have an idea of what's out there and if you should be rotating passwords. Password managers will also tell you that. Use a VPN at home and the office. We didn't mention this, but a VPN at home also has some advantages. Adds potentially an extra layer of security if your main network's been compromised. In terms of managed configurations, vulnerabilities, that's probably something you want a managed outsourced IT provider. Inquisitive IT does this for individuals, but you can also use your work computer potentially that hopefully is the IT guys and cybersecurity guys are doing a good job of this, but you can use that as well. Setting up a guest network on your Wi-Fi router is extremely easy to do. Most of these Wi-Fi, most of your Wi-Fi systems have an app for you to do this. Make it a complex password. Make sure that you have a separate Wi-Fi network in your house subnet that has all these less secure devices on them. Managed authentication services that utilize privileged access. I don't think we'll really go into that for individuals, but there's a lot of new habits in terms of I mentioned that kind of like dual authentication for when any of our clients lose a password, they need to be reset. We got to be really careful with that. 24/7 detection and response really has to do less so on the Chromebooks, more so on the Macs and PCs that we manage. So that's about it. I have a test here as well that I wanted to throw into the chat. You can test your knowledge. Let's see if this works. It should be in the comments. Well, it is on YouTube, but probably not on LinkedIn. I will put that on. I'm checking out for the day. Like I said, we have these probably usually once a month. We'll start to have them faster as we accumulate more clients here. Inquisitive IT, very active in the tri-state, very active in the state of Florida. Reach out. If I can help protect a loved one, your mother, investors, clients. Like I said, we work with financial planners, family offices, state attorneys, accountants, all referring us individuals they want Inquisitive IT to work with to secure them. And like I said, I'm open Komodo on all the best practices we practice here and how we help prevent and secure these individuals. So reach out, give me a call. If you have any comments or things that you think you're concerned with, I love to farm for dissent from friends and family, from my network on LinkedIn. Let me know where you think there's weaknesses here, because I know things are evolving by the day, and any way we can help our end customers and end clients, the better. So appreciate you jumping on, and let me know if I can help. Cheers.